Good morning. Morena, and welcome to our council meeting for the 15th of August. And this morning I'm going to ask our Deputy Mayor, Councillor Michael Ford, to open our meeting.
Thank you, Your Worship. Welcome everybody. Welcome to all our guests. Today I thought for a change we'd open with a few one-liners about politics and councils. So did anyone here think that the word politics came from Aristotle in ancient Greece? Possibly, yep. Well, actually it's simpler than that. The word politics comes from poly, meaning many, and ticks, meaning blood-sucking parasites. Russian citizens are often confused about why it can take New Zealand so long to get a definitive result from our elections, because they know their results months in advance. We are indeed fortunate to have an open democracy with a range of viewpoints, whether it be in Parliament or even around this table. I think communism was doomed from the beginning. I think they missed all the red flags. Boom, boom. Charles de Gaulle once said, "I've come to the conclusion that politics is too serious a matter to be left to the politicians." Many a true word. And if you don't like political jokes, you might subscribe to the concern group that don't approve of political jokes because they've seen too many get elected. What do you call a bad lawyer? Member of Parliament. Bit cruel. And a question, why isn't the council displaying a nativity scene this Christmas? Because they can't find three wise men, but plenty of wise women though.
Thank you.
Probably the worst one of the lot is non-Manawatu District Council politicians have been compared to nappies. They both need to be changed regularly and for the same reason. Ronald Reagan once said, "I've left orders to be awakened at any time in case of a national emergency, even if I'm in a cabinet meeting." And I suspect that his words might have some current relevancy, says me who has an arrangement with Councillor Quigley to my left to kick me whenever I nod off. What's the difference? What's the difference between Thanksgiving Day and Election Day? Well, on Thanksgiving, you get a turkey for a day, but on Election Day, you get a turkey for 4 years. Talking of Councillor Quigley, Kerry called the council and asked if he could have a skip outside his house. And was General Manager Lynn replied, "Kerry, you can do cartwheels and handstands, whatever you like, for all I care." Nearly finished. Gary Barnett is watching two council contractors. One of them digs a hole, then they both lean on their shovels, look at it for a minute or two, then the second one fills the hole in. And they move on a few metres and repeat the process. After he's watched them do this 4 or 5 times, Gary goes up and asks them what they're doing. The workers reply, "Well, there's normally 3 of us, but the guy that puts the trees in is called in sick today." So we'll need to keep this in mind tomorrow when we're doing the Wingman's Trust tree planting. We must get into groups of 3. And the following headline appeared in the Fielding Herald and threw the council into an uproar. The headline was, "Half the district council are crooks," it read. A retraction in full was demanded of the editor under the threat of a libel suit. Next week, the headline read, "Half the district council aren't crooks." And to finish up on a serious note, I look forward to our day. We have some serious business to attend to in council and in workshop, and there'll be a wide range of views on some of the topics. I'm confident that the views will be honestly held and expressed respectfully, and that we will continue our good track record of being able to agree to disagree respectfully. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you for that light-hearted opening. Appreciated. Thank you. No apologies today. Full team here, so we can go to item 3, confirmation of minutes. We're on page 7. I have a recommendation. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Ford.
Your Worship, I move that the minutes of the council meeting held on the 1st of August 2024 be adopted as a true and correct record.
Thank you. I have a mover. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Blackmore, thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion is carried. Thank you. Item 4, declaration of interest. This is an opportunity for elected members to declare a potential conflict on any of the items on our agenda today. Councillor McFadyen.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I have a conflict of interest around the gaming policy, so we'll need to stand down on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Short.
I have a conflict with the community development policy, private cemetery and Urupā Fund. I'm associated with one of the beneficiary cemeteries.
Thank you. Councillor Campbell.
We have done a little bit of work for the Fielding Civic Centre Trust, but I don't believe there's a conflict, but I'll take your advice.
Yep, and when we come back to that, thank you. Do I need a motion for those, or are we just noting them? Just noting them. Thank you. Right, we can move on to presentations. Exciting this morning. We've got 3 teams that we're going to hear from, some very smart young people in our community who've been representing us at different competitions. And the first up is the Halcombe School. Welcome, team. Come and join us at the table. You can bring up a few more chairs.
It's actually Halcombe School and Waituna West School. The 3
Fantastic.
teams.
Right, let's get that right. Halcombe School and Waituna West. These are the Agri Kids finalists, and they went to the 2024 National Agri Kids competition in Hamilton last month. And so we're looking forward to hearing from you. Welcome. So it's all yours.
Thank you for the opportunity to share with you our Agri Kids adventure. We competed in the Agri Kids Taranaki Manawatu regional competition at the Central District Field Days in March. The top 3 teams got through to the national grand final, which was held at Claudelands Event Centre in Hamilton during the July holidays.
It was cool that all 3 of the Agri Kids teams were from Manawatu district, and before we headed off to Hamilton, we worked together and put in a massive effort to prepare.
We spent time after school visiting sponsors. Some of the things we learnt were
Ravensdown, we learnt all there is to know about fertiliser.
Honda, we learnt how to change a 4-wheeler tyre.
New Holland, we learnt about PTOs and their 3-point linkages.
We also visited a local dairy farmer and learnt about supplementary feed and milking. We had other suppliers visit us in sessions after school, such as
H&T, who taught us about cropping and seeds.
Milwaukee brought a ute of tools, and we put the leaf blowers to the test.
We also did some Sunday sessions on a couple of farms.
The parents set up tasks that they thought we might have to do at the final.
It was also an opportunity to hone our teamwork skills.
In June, we got together with the other finalists for Taramang and had a session together at Halcombe School.
It was so cool meeting and working with the junior young farmers of the year and the Fielding High School and Palmy boys, and meeting Zane, our Taramang young farmer of the year.
In the build-up to the grand final, there was another competition run called the FMG Region Off. This involved getting votes and doing all sorts of tasks in the community to contribute to the 5 ways of well-being.
We did all sorts.
Helping local farmers with stock work, feeding out and sharing,
Fencing,
baking for people in our needs in our community,
donating to food banks,
planting trees in the community,
cleaning monuments,
helping the school caretaker,
preparing and serving food for the Halcombe School Matariki celebration,
sharing our farming knowledge with the teachers,
inviting our whole class into doing a rubbish fishing on the Python Community Walkway.
For the grand final, we headed off to Hamilton on the middle weekend of the school holidays. There was an introduction evening of the Thursday night where we got to check out the other teams.
Morning of the grand final was a typical Hamilton day.
freezing and foggy. There were 3 parts to the final.
Modules where you had to do tasks and solve problems.
The race-off, where you had to work in a team to do variety and practically tasks. A quiz where we had to answer 60 agri-related questions.
Halcombe Black's favourite part was the Honda module.
The Waituna West farmers' favourite part was the race-off.
How come Red's favourite part was the quiz?
To complete the day, we also did a region of teams competition where Zane had to cut up logs, the junior young farmers had to split the wood, and us agri kids had to stack it.
We reckon our stick was the best.
So you're probably wondering how we did. Of the 21 agri kids teams, how come Red came 7th, how come Black came 14th, and the Waituna West farmers came 17th, which was awesome.
The best bit, apart from everything we learned, was that Taraman won the regional. So next month we get to present $5,000 to the Grassroots Rescue Helicopter. We would like to say a big thank you to the Manawatu District Council for supporting our Agri Kids adventure through the games.
We are proud to represent our region. It has opened our eyes to a wider view of what agriculture is about and various areas we might like to work in later.
We've also learned some great practical skills and I can't wait to give it another go next year.
Awesome. Well done. Well done to the whole 3 teams. That's fantastic. So did you go in as 3 separate teams? So you were actually competing against each other as well as the other teams?
Yeah.
Fantastic. That's great. And from all of the activities that you did, Halcombe and Waituna West are obviously the cleanest and tidiest and places with all the activities that you did. And yeah, I can see that you're going to be put to work in the holidays with some of those skills, fencing and feeding out and etc. So fantastic. So one of you said you can't wait till next year. Are you all going to go back next year and have another crack?
Yeah, all the rest are year 8, so they're off to high school.
They're off to high school, so you can step up to the next level and then eventually carry on to the New Zealand Young Farmer of the Year. So who knows, potentially we have one of you standing right here in front of us. Any further questions from our team? Councillor Quarry.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Your Worship. What a great presentation.
Yeah,
it was really good.
excellent.
We get to see quite a few of them and you guys are right up there with the top, so well done.
Thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations, well done. Thanks, team. Thank you for coming today. You can be very proud of what you've done. Okay, next up in our representative grant reporting back to council, we've got Mason Karini Iwako, and so welcome. Come and join us. So Mason competed in the World Cup placements tournament in the White Sox under 18 team. So welcome, congratulations, and keen to hear about your journey.
Well, morning everyone. So as said before, my name is Mason Karini Iwiko and I play softball for New Zealand. A little bit about me is that I'm a resident of Fielding and have been since I was born, and my family actually kind of live down the road. I also whakapapa here through Tokorangi under the Manawatu district region, and I'm a year 13 student at Girls High and a member of the New Zealand under 18 women's junior White Sox team, so the softball team. Firstly, I'd like to thank you for your support with my tour. Appreciate the help that you have given my family and I. In regards to my New Zealand journey, it's been quite lengthy despite my age. Last month was only an end result of the hard work done by my family, my supporters, friends, and myself. So essentially my journey started when I made the move from Manawatu to travel between twice to 4 times a week down to Hutt Valley in Wellington, and have been doing that since 2017. Since then, so about 7-ish years, I've made age grade and open women representative teams for Hutt Valley, as well as squads and teams for the national sides in under 15 and under 18. So yeah, so achieving these goals allowed me to play around the country for various different teams, as well as taking me overseas to Australia, parts of the US, Japan, and American Samoa to play. Due to my sport being fully self-funded, especially within the women's game, we've done many fundraisers, spent a lot of time stacking up to cover the costs as both teams and individually. In terms of recent events, the cost consisted of flights, accommodation, food, transport, vaccinations, as well as more additionally. But the grant we received from you helped me get overseas to prepare for and compete in the WBSC, which is the World Softball Baseball Confederation, 2024 Under-18 Women's Group A World Cup qualifier in Sao Paulo, Brazil. Yeah, South America, nice. Pre-tournament took us over to Dallas, Texas, where we competed in a tournament, played in exhibition games against local teams and colleges, so women kind of around or above our age, as well as trained for a number of days. Following this, we flew to Brazil, just with final touch-ups before the tournament started. Across the 5-day qualifier, we finished second on the table after pool play, so that went really well for us. But then we had to face Chinese Taipei and the Czech Republic. Unfortunately, falling to both, we missed out on making the World Cup finals in Dallas for next year. So a bit of a downside, but overall, it was a really good campaign for us. We exceeded our expectations as well as the ones put on, I guess, by others. Competing on the world stage was essentially a goal for me once I discovered it within the sport, and being able to do that proudly for my country and in front of my family meant everything. So that was pretty cool. And this one also means a lot as it was my last time. So I age out now. So yeah. Moving forward from here for me is a scholarship to the US for college in Kansas at Garden City Community College. This will further my softball career as well as my academic studies. So that will be me in January of 2025. So yes, a very exciting opportunity that I look forward to at the conclusion of my final year of high school. Yeah, to wrap this up, I'd just like to thank you again for your support. Not only heading away to Brazil last month, but actually also one of my first trips back in 2019 as a 13-year-old heading away to California for a tour. So again, thank you for that. And yeah, just appreciate the help that you gave me to get it away. Thank you.
That's awesome, amazing, well done, congratulations. And for an under 18-year-old, you've travelled a lot in your sport, but well done for the passion and the commitment. And I like the fact that you reference your family and whānau for the work that they've done to get you to where you've got to today. So fantastic. And congratulations on your scholarship. That is super cool. So we look forward to seeing your name in lights in one of those American teams. Any questions from our team? Councillor Bell.
Tēnā koe e mokopono no Tokorangi. Just a big piki mihi to you and all your whānau, all your supporters. I actually feel while I'm sitting here that we're witnessing a rising star in sports, if not already. Just a huge accomplishment, and your trajectory is really bright. I can't wait to hear what you do in Kansas. Please remember that you come from Manawatu when you're there. If you can rep us, in fact, we might give you some merch today. Can I ask a question around how you've been able to manage, because it's so important that rangatahi hear this, how did you manage your studies while you had a very, very rigorous sporting routine? What did that look like for you?
I mean, a lot of comms, a lot of communication. I work with the deputy principal, so she helps me like sort out all of my assessments. Also working with my teachers, like, just figuring out what needs to be done, what can be done while I'm away. I'm sorry, I did not do any work while I was away. Honestly, I was either training, sleeping in, I don't know, a bus or on a plane or something. But yeah, basically when I came back, because I'd sorted it all beforehand and understood what I could and couldn't do, it was more of a, okay, this assessment will be a bit of a push, so, but I'm able to kind of withdraw from that without it affecting any of my grades or my subjects or overall NCA. So that was good. Overall, it was just the prep that I did beforehand so that I wasn't in that much of a hole to have to dig my way out of. And then just further communication with departments around extensions because they all understand that I'm away a lot. So, but yeah, it was just more around the comms, understanding if I don't do the work, it is gonna fall. So yeah, just getting that work done, getting it done early, and yeah.
Well done, Ehine. Well done on your management and balancing that, balancing both.
it's
And again,
impressive.
big mihi to your father behind there. Tēnā koe.
Councillor Ford.
Yeah, thank you. Congratulations on your achievements. Yeah, wish you absolutely every success with your scholarship. Just going to Brazil, it's been a lifelong ambition, but I'm a bit worried I might be aging out myself. I may not get there, but how many teams were in the competition?
Sorry. So in this one, it was 6. So last year in November, I went away to American Samoa, where we had the Oceania qualifier. So that was between ourselves, Australia and American Samoa. So even though it was 3, it was just only 2 could qualify and move forward. So us in Australia qualified and we actually won the tournament, which was a very big step for us. Otherwise, we would have had to face the US, which this is their domain, this is their area. So yeah, so it actually put us in a really good spot to go to Brazil. And then there was Chinese Taipei, ourselves, Brazil, Colombia, the Czech Republic from Europe, and I'm missing one. It's really bad. We played all of them as well. Yeah, another one. An additional one. Oh, Great Britain. Sorry.
Okay. Well, you did extremely well. Thanks
Thank
very
you.
much. Congratulations.
Yeah, outstanding. Well done. And like we've said, we wish you every success and hope that all your dreams combined with all your hard work come true in the States. And we look forward to seeing you back home some stage.
Indeed. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
And also this morning, we're going to hear from Coralie Hadfield through the representative grant with her competition in the Girls Netball Champs. So welcome, Coralie.
I think this is on. Sweet, it's on now. My name is Coralie Hadfield, and just before I start the presentation, a little bit about me. I go to Awatapu College. I am sports captain there. I play for my school team and I play for a club team and also I play for a reps team. This tournament, it was my first time doing reps and I was a bit nervous, very excited. We had done a few pre-tournaments before. One was in Palmy and then the other one was in Wellington. We did very well in both. We won all our games. And then for the nationals, it was a bit scary. The first few days we had lost. We were just very, very nervous. And once we got that out of our system, we started doing better. We started winning some of our games. We were playing better as a team, and it was great. For the actual tournament, we had to have a lot of resilience. The competition was very hard. We weren't expecting it to be as hard because we had played a few of the teams before. So we were a little bit just expecting to win. But once we had lost to Hawke's Bay, we really started playing more together as a team. Yeah. Yeah, it was a really good opportunity for me because I hadn't played with people my own age. I had been used to playing with people older than me. Yeah, so this was my first time playing with people who are skilled, but also my own age. It was really good. I made a lot of new friends. Yeah, I think there's the next slide.
Next slide,
Next
Steph.
slide.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Oh yeah, this was a learning moment. The games are very challenging, and definitely the thing I learned was resilience. Thank you. Yeah. Although we didn't win our games, we improved throughout every game, and we learned some new things, and we improved more and more each time we played together. Rework this. Oh, there we go. Oh, that was the wrong way. Okay. We did end up having an injury in the team. Yep. This was our goal shooter. She had rolled her ankle in the second to last game, which was our semi-finals. We were a bit nervous because she was one of our best shooters. But we were able to adjust, and then we played very, very well. We ended up winning that game for her. So then we moved on to the finals. Oh yeah, supporters. I suck at this. My goodness, okay. We had great support for whoever was on the bench and the other team that was competing, which was the green team. They had come and watched 3 of our games, and luckily those games we won. And we had some whānau who came down, which was my parents and then a few other girls' parents, and they were amazing. They cheered us on whenever we were like losing or were down. They were like just encouraging us, really, really positive affirmations, just stuff like that. So it was really good. I just want to say thank you. The tournament was amazing. I learned a lot. I watched some really great players, so I was able to learn some new tricks from them. I'm so lucky to have been selected for this team. It was an amazing opportunity, and I was also awarded best team player throughout the season. Yeah.
Done.
So thank you guys so much for the support you guys have given me. Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Well done, Coralie. Where to next for you in the sport?
I'm hoping to go to Opens for Manawatu. I'm trialing next year. So I'm hoping that I get selected and we can go on many other tournaments in the future. And I'm also, if I don't get in next year, I'm also going to London later on in the year. So I want to be definitely trialing there and going to play in England because I think it would be really, really good experience.
Awesome, awesome. Well done. It's fantastic to hear your success. Any questions from our team? Councillor Quigley.
Thank you. That was a great presentation. It was all done without notes. Oh, thank you. My minder. You know, I think the no note thing was really well done. I've tried doing that in the past and it goes pear-shaped with me, but you did very well. Congratulations and good luck in the future.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hadfield. Now, any relation Hadfield name?
No, I'm the Auckland Hadfields.
Yeah, no, it's Auckland versus Kapiti Coast, Your Worship.
Okay.
So, yeah, thank you, Councillor Quarry. Look, all I'll say is nice to see a Hadfield actually achieving and supporting excellence. So well done, but certainly not for me. But you know, well done, and good luck with everything that's in front of you. And as Councillor Quigley said, brilliant presentation with no notes. Well done.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming today. It was a pleasure to be able to help you in a small way, and we wish you all the best with your future.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Right, thank you. I also was remiss in the welcome this morning to welcome the team from Fielding Intermediate School who are joining us today. I'm not going to say too much about it, but they are gathering information for an entry into the Tournament of Minds. So we will hear more about that in the future, but welcome. Good to have you with us today. So we move to our public forum session in our meeting this morning. Welcome, Wayne. Is Trevor with you, or you're on your own today?
He's got code of silence. Sorry, yeah, he can't be here this morning because of his conflict.
So welcome. You're wanting to talk to us about the vandalism of our public conveniences.
Yeah, I guess, as I say, Trevor couldn't be here unfortunately, but, and him and I sat down, and put some notes together anyway. But, my plumbing depot and Brett Services work pretty closely together to, provide solutions, plumbing solutions for the, public amenities throughout the district. And, we've achieved a hell of a lot over, the last couple of years, I suppose. We've got 90% of rural toilets now with potable drinking water, which is great for you guys, it keeps you fed. And some of the other tidy up jobs and stuff around the district too that sort of needed doing from past issues, I suppose. But what really annoys us is the graffiti, the vandalism and theft that we're seeing continuing. We think our rates could go a lot further if we actually got on top of that. I mean, when we're going there to fix up broken toilets, broken pans, so pans and stuff like that, and then we've got so a pan $200 to $300. If it's a disabled pan, you're looking at up to $1,200 for a pan. And then you've got all the graffiti. So some of the graffiti that's happening is weekly. Some of it's minor, happens through school holidays, usually spray painting and some of it's permanent marking. But there's common signatures and trademarks that are coming out all the time. And surely someone must know who they are. So, yeah, it's just really frustrating us. We're seeing fire extinguishers being used to break toilets and stuff like that. Toilets being filled up with rubbish and cans and stuff, broken tile roofs. And then theft, I suppose, over the last 6 to 7 years, we've had about 18 Infinities stolen from Victoria Park. It's just happened continually. Yeah, they put cages up around, they put alarms on them and stuff like that. It still happens. So, you know, when we look at our costs and we look at the cost of roading that's gone up and everything like that, well, maybe we need to look at some of these costs. And I guess what we sort of think is we'd like council to have a more proactive approach on towards us rather than just sort of keeping it quiet and underground. We've seen other councils doing a similar sort of thing. Palmerston North City Council, I think they reported over the last 9 months, 240K has gone on to vandalism and graffiti and stuff like that. We think we need to be a little bit more public about it and try to get our community actually being their minders out there too around those spaces. Yeah, it's just frustrating. So yeah, one thing I'd like to know is if you guys actually have any idea what the cost is on vandalism and graffiti and stuff like that, or if it's recorded or. Okay. Security cameras, we believe that Palmerston North City Council is doing that too. We think that's part of the solution. And sharing of security cameras and working more with police and stuff. There was an incident recently down at soccer club rooms where there was an Infinity taken, and they weren't able to access the security cameras from the next door. From a soccer club or something, I would see what happened. I just think we need to be a bit more open-minded around this and try to get on top of some of the issues. But I know security cameras outside toilets seems a bit funny, but I'm sure they could be outside. We start seeing regular people that are coming and going when damage has happened. It may resolve some of the issues. But yeah, anyway.
Thanks, Wayne. Thank you for bringing it to our attention. It's certainly something that we'll follow up with through our management team. Yeah, you know, and I even wonder about cameras. I know we had cameras in the square with the toilets and they got stolen. So, you know, it is a constant battle. But yeah, if we make everybody more aware, keeping eyes and ears open, like you say, people must know who these ratbags are doing it.
Well, I think it's community facing and stuff like that should be there. In fact, you know, we're seeing similar sort of logo, the trademark, you're seeing around town all over the place.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, working with the police. Okay. Thank you for coming and raising that with us today. We will certainly follow it up with our team and look at what more we can do. Councillor Belsky.
Yeah, thank you, Wayne, for this presentation. I totally agree with you. We are very frustrated in Rangawahi Hall. We've had our coin box stolen in the shower, which is a $2 coin, and they have a lovely warm shower for 5 minutes or 7 minutes. And we've had it broken into. We've had a top engineer secure it, and then they tried to pick the lock, and they broke a part of the material into the lock, and now we can't even open the lock. And we got cameras outside. We've shown the police. The police said, "Oh, we can't do anything because we can't literally prove that they actually touched it." And yet the evidence there, 2 o'clock in the morning, is all there when they walk out. So it's extremely frustrating, and I think it's more of a police matter. They have to absolutely get tough. So I totally support even cameras inside the toilet that are focused on, obviously not the pan, but obviously focus on in our situation on the coin box, because they bring these, even the police are frustrated. They bring them before the courts and they just get a slap over the back of the hand. So there has to be a whole look at this situation. It has got out of control. I totally agree with you on that issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Any final comments from the team? Councillor Quigley.
Thank you. Reminder again. Thank you. Wayne, the cost of a stainless steel toilet, I presume they're quite expensive, but they'd be a lot easier not to damage. Wow. As opposed to?
Well, $200 for a conventional pan and probably.
Oh, okay. So you could wreck quite a few of those before you got up the money for the stainless one. Yeah. Okay. That was my thought. And I like the idea of cameras, not so much inside the toilet, Steve. Probably not a good idea. But if you saw someone walking out with a, what do they steal? Infinity. You'd know that they've got the Infinity, wouldn't you? So yeah, good idea.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Wayne. Thanks for your time today. Right, moving on. Notification of late items. We have none today. No recommendations from committees. So we go to our minutes from our community and group meetings for our information. So those minutes from our community committees are available online, but this is also an opportunity for liaison councillors to highlight anything from those various communities. Apathy, Councillor Belsky.
Yeah, Apathy have been frustrated. They had a funeral in Apathy, and the guys had a farewell for him and did wheel spins round and round and round, and absolutely disgraced the Apathy village with their wheel black marks. So they're in a bit of they're really frustrated too with the law and with actions taken. Other than that, they're all good. They're all good. Yep.
Thank you.
Nothing else.
Cheltenham is, who am I with? Councillor Quarry.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. No, things are ticking along. They're only meeting every 3 months. The numbers are dropping down in the committee, but they're still quite passionate in ensuring that they're doing the best for Cheltenham. There's a new sign going up that's part of the signage for the north, representing where they are on the map and the points to see and the route to take and so forth. So they're quite looking forward to that. And they're also working on the playground. They're sort of continuing to try and develop that. So.
Awesome, thank you. Councillor McFadden, Halcombe and Kimbolton.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, the excuse me. The committee recently had a lantern night festival. Disappointed with the number of people that showed up. They're also suffering from lack of numbers, and they're really facing burnout. And I think that's across a lot of the committees now, that the numbers are dropping and they're really attempting to take on too much. So it's been suggested that they pull back a little bit on that. They've got 100, for example, it's 150 anniversary of Halcombe, settlement of Halcombe. And they've decided that really they don't have it in them to put the effort in to celebrate it. So they're just going to do a low key afternoon high tea type thing and invite all of the community to come along and share their family photos and experiences. But yeah, as I said, they're suffering from burnout.
Thank you. Your Bolton?
Certainly was this week. Yes, so once again, they've done a lot of work on the hall. They put a lot of work into refurbishing it, a lot of volunteer work. There, once again, their numbers are dropping significantly. There's a little bit of an impact with the local play centre being closed down, but they've looking to get an alternative to try and keep the function going. And thanks to Lynn and her contribution to be able to move the lease over. But other than that, it's just business as usual.
Thank you. Councillor Campbell, Pahongana.
Yes, a meeting held last night. Pahongana Valley, one of the key projects has been ongoing work at the Pahongana domain. So thanks to the combined efforts of the community committee, the council and community volunteers, the domain's seen some new trees planted, welcome signs put up, and it's a pretty nice spot for everyone out there. So that alongside some work around community emergency preparedness, yeah, the committee's contributing and partnering very well with the council.
Excellent. Councillor Underwood, Rongatia.
Thank you. They're obviously going against the grain because they managed to vote on 3 new members at last week's meeting. So the committee has grown, and their project they're looking at now is getting some natives planted around the township, and also their annual spud in the bucket competition is due to start, where they sell the spuds in September, and then people grow them in a bucket, and then they have a count off in December.
Awesome. Thank you. Councillor Short, Sansom.
Thank you. Just ticking along quietly out there. Recently, they got a quote for new LED lights in the stadium part of the hall. So they need to come and have a chat with James. It was a lot more than what they were expecting, $12,000 to replace the whole set. If you haven't been in the Sanson Hall, it's actually quite a big hall. They've got a number that are already blown already. So they've decided with the funds that they already have on hand, they'll fix the ones that are blown for now. I'll have a chat with James, and they're looking into a Central Energy Trust grant in November.
Great. Thank you.
Excuse me,
Councillor
Yours.
Quarry.
Just on that, I was at a funeral at the Sanson Hall, and I was shocked and horrified at the condition of the roof, the Sanson Hall roof. To me, it looked quite appalling. I was just wondering what the situation is in regard to that
Okay, let's.
externally.
Okay. So we'll make a note of that and take that up with our team. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Councillor Blackmore, the Youth Council.
Thank you. Well, last meeting, the Youth Council had Sport Manawatu come along to do a workshop on, in particular, the young people's involvement in active recreation and what some of the barriers might be. Thank you to Councillor Hadfield for coming along to that meeting to see what we do. It's very much appreciated and noticed by the members. Next Monday, we've got a workshop on the town centre refresh, and come along for that. The other things are the Young Achievers Awards, Monday the 23rd of September. So the Youth Council are really supporting Joey and Ash with putting that together. And in a month or so, we might kick off some more recruitment, as many of our members are year 13 and they're all off to uni and gap years and different things. So we're going to lose probably half of our members. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. So there's some good things going on around the district, which is great. So we now move into item 10, which is a number of officer reports. And the first one on our agenda today is to revisit the Maori ward. And just to give you a little bit of background, earlier in the year, we received notification from the Minister asking councils who had a Maori ward to, they gave us two options. One was that council could vote or to disestablish or not their Maori ward at the next election in 2025. If we voted not to disestablish, which is what we did, there would be a public referendum in 2025, which would become effective in 2028. So having received that letter from the Minister, we proactively put it on our agenda on the 16th of May and voted not to disestablish our Maori ward. As we know, however, the bill went through Parliament and was passed. And then in July, we received a letter from the Local Government Commission telling us that those councils who had already made a decision on this needed to redo that decision now that the bill had passed, and we have to complete that by the 6th of September. So hence the topic and recommendation is back on the table today so that we give reference to the new bill. But I'm going to hand over to Francis and to Shane.
Thank you, Bishop. You probably summed up most of it. Just also for your attention, though, is that when that notification was received by us or by me regarding disregarding the previous resolution, I did run it through council's lawyers to see whether we had to follow what the instruction was. I think it was Ministry of Justice, I think, Your Worship, and have to have a new vote. The legal advice from our lawyers was that we did, and that the previous vote didn't stand because the legislation that required the vote wasn't enacted when we took the vote. So it was referenced and relevant to nothing. So hence why they made the decision that you had to retake the vote. So the advice from our lawyers was to follow the guidance, to link the resolution specifically back to the legislation, and that's why the wording in the resolution in our report has changed. It is verbatim to what is in the legislation. So that's where we've got to today. So happy to take questions, take the report as read.
Thank you. Francis, is there anything you wish to add? No? Thank you. Right, let's open it up for discussion. Councillor Hadfield.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Look, I've had a look at this recommendation and I wish to actually move an amendment to this recommendation. Firstly, because I believe the wrong act is quoted in this recommendation and reference to Schedule 1, Part 3, Section 11.2a is actually the Local Electoral Act 2001, not the Local Government Electoral Legislation of Maori Wards and Maori Constituencies Amendment Act 2024. So, if I may, I'd like to move an amendment to this recommendation is that we go 1, that in accordance with the Local Electoral Act 2001, Schedule 1, Part 3, Section 11.2a, the Council resolves to retain the Ngā Tapawai Matangi Maori Ward, and 2, this is an addition, that in accordance with the Local Electoral Act 2001, Schedule 1, Part 3, Section 39(1)a, a binding poll will be held alongside the 2025 election on whether the district will be divided into one or more Maori Wards constituencies.
Thank you. Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that amendment? Councillor McFadyen. Thank you.
Your Worship, that's actually not an amendment because there's no motion on the table. It's just a recommendation in our report. So what Councillor Hadfield is suggesting would become the substantive motion.
Thank you. Right, but more importantly, have we got the wording of what Councillor... Okay, so we do need to get the wording of what is being recommended correctly recorded, and so we can get it up on the screen. So can you please repeat, you're suggesting 2 recommendations? The first one is?
So the first one is changing the Act, and I believe that the reference made in Schedule 1, Part 3, Section blah. Bear with me. Is actually on page 157 of the Local Electoral Act 2001. So it's my view that that's actually the reference to that act that we should be making. So my recommendation is, and I'm sure the Chief Executive will be hunting through the act to make sure I'm right, is that in accordance with the Local Electoral Act 2001?
So there's two parts. So the amendment is in respect of the local government electoral legislation and Māori wards and Māori constituencies Amendment Act, but it actually amends the substantive act, which is the Local Electoral Act 2001. So referencing the Local Electoral Act 2001 would be right.
Yes.
Or you could reference both.
Well, actually, I don't think, well, my view is it's not necessarily, because actually, if you actually look at the Local Government Electoral Legislation of Maori Wards and Maori Constituencies Amendment Act 2024, there is actually no Schedule 1, Part 3, Section 11.2a. There is a Section 11.2, but there's not a Section 2a, which is why, in my view, that we should make reference back to the, as you rightly say, the substantive act, which is the Local Electoral Act 2001.
So the amendment that's come through Parliament becomes Part 3 of the Local Electoral Act.
Correct, which is actually
why
what's quoted here, which is why I've suggested that we go refer to the Local Electoral Act, because specifically that actually states what we want to be saying in Schedule 1, Part 3, Section 11.2a.
Yep, you can do that.
So there we go.
Thank you. So perhaps Shane, could you help us with some wording so that to help Stefan Ash get this recorded correctly, because it is important that we get it right, as we'll be asked to come back to do it again. So bear with us. Let's get the wording right. Put it up on the screen.
So in the first part, Your Worship, we actually only need to change the actual act. So to the Local Electoral Act 2001.
Thank you. Yes.
So number two, second
Number
part,
two.
is that in accordance with the Local Electoral Act 2001, in brackets, Schedule 1, Part 3, Section 39, 1A,
Carry on.
a binding poll will be held alongside the 2025 election on whether the district be divided into one or more Maori wards / constituencies.
Can I just ask the question? Councillor Hadfield is using the word poll. I'm wondering, should we use the terminology referendum, given that that's the wording from government?
It does say poll.
Thank you. Yeah, it is confusing when I read through them all. You know, they use different terms,
Yes, they do.
not to disestablish, to affirm,
That's
to
right.
retain.
But
There's no consistent language.
Section 39 in the Amendment Act, which goes into the Electoral Act, says conduct a binding poll.
Poll. Okay, thank you. So that is the correct
Which is
wording.
where I got that wording from.
Thank you. Yep, it is important that we get this right so that our vote does count into this process. Councillor Blackmore.
Thank you. I'm just wondering, may we have time to review the references before voting, please?
Your Worship, can we possibly have 5 minutes just so we can make sure we align all this? Because when you move Part 3 into the Substantive Act, the numbering's changed.
Yeah.
So we just want to make sure we quote the right references and the right legislation So if we could have a 5-minute adjournment, then we can sit down and make sure we
Thank
get
you.
it
I
right.
think that's a really good idea to help our team, A, to get it accurate, but also to allow time for our team to get it up on the screen. So we will adjourn our meeting for 5 minutes.
Get the references there.
Well, we've only got a copy of it. Haven't done what else? Local government legislation.
Yeah. No, well, I wouldn't have thought we'd have to, but I feel like this is, there's a.
I don't know what.
something happening here.
We will reconvene our meeting. Thank you for that break. So we now have two motions have been moved. The wording is as you see on the screen. Just give you a moment to read those. So we have a mover. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor McFadden, thank you.
Yeah, probably. I suggest we do it in 2 parts.
Yes, we can do that if that's the wish of the meeting in 2 parts. Councillor Hadfield as the mover.
Thank you, Your Worship. I actually don't see the point of doing this in 2 parts because actually I would go 1 and after retain Ngā Tapuai o Matangi Māori ward, I'd put a comma and then 2 in accordance with whatever, you know, so I actually don't see why there's any necessity to actually do that in 2 parts.
Councillor Short.
Well, as they are up on the board at the moment, I personally would vote for one and against the other. I'm sure you know my views. I don't at all support a binding poll because I think a representation review is the right approach. And I'd like to ask the Chief Executive, if the council refused or did not wish to hold a binding poll, what would be the ramifications for that?
So you're breaking the law. You're also breaking the oath you took as a councillor when you pledged to uphold the laws of New Zealand. I don't know what the outcome will be. I suspect there would be one. I know it's a huge debate amongst councils, and one council has suggested that they might look at doing that. However, the majority of CEs across the region that are commenting on this have taken legal advice, and the advice is don't break the law. You are in a position of authority, and your reputation and integrity as a council is also on the line here. So whilst a lot will agree with your sentiment, councillor, the advice is don't break the law.
Thank you. And also the way that it's worded is we're acknowledging that it is in accordance with the law, which is why number 2 starts referring to that. Councillor Quarry.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to, this is a very, very contentious issue, and there needs to be leadership, I believe, which is neutral. And I'd like to respectfully ask you to abstain from voting on these matters. I think in the longer term, you could then point to a fact that you are neutral in these debating points, and that you would be better suited to be a guiding light after the votes have been taken. So I'd like to request that of you.
Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think it'll be no surprise to anyone in the room. I'm very adjacent to Councillor Quarry, and I would respectfully request that you stay consistent with your views and your position, and exercise the leadership that the community expects of you, and participate in the voting today. I do not support Councillor Quarry's recommendation that you stay neutral. That is not the job of the Mayor. The Mayor is to be a leader, and a leader has firm positions.
Thank you. Councillor Ford.
Thank you. So I have no view on the first part. I think that was a tidying up of wording. The second part, well, no, I think what's in front of us today is merely a tidying up of the resolution that we made in May. So I think this is of no great consequence because we've already made a decision on it, but it didn't reference the Act, and so we have to comply, and so we have to revisit it. If we look at on page 17, 2.2, it states very clearly that if the council resolves to retain a binding poll will be held alongside the 2025 local government elections. So it's my view that that number 2 is unnecessary because anyone that's following the issue knows fully well that that happens and it doesn't. So I believe it's superfluous. However, my vote will depend somewhat on the outcome of a question I'm going to put to the mover, and that is, would the mover of the motion vote in favour of the original motion, albeit with the wording of 1 corrected, if number 2 is lost? So this is quite an important question because it might affect a number of people. Chief Executive is going to correct me.
No, I'm not actually. But I just want to point out too, even if today the council votes no to 2, we still legally have to do it. Our electoral officer will be legally bound to have to do that poll.
Correct.
So, I guess I'm kind of supporting what the Deputy Mayor is saying in some ways because the government hasn't given us an option.
No.
They have said you will, and it's very clear. And this is, where I think perhaps that isn't quite right. So even if we go no to 2 today, myself and the electoral officer are statutorily bound to have to run that poll.
So, Your Worship, I will answer the Deputy Mayor's question, Councillor Ford's question. So when I looked at this, my personal view was, for the sake of accuracy and for the sake of public clarity, that I wanted 2 in there. So to answer the Deputy Mayor's question, if 2 isn't there, I will vote against. The initial motion. So my request and my desire for that to be in there, which the Chief Executive has pointed out, is actually enshrined in law anyhow, it's going to happen, is actually simply for public clarity. And it transcends, in my view, political nuances. So there's my answer. So so if we're going to do this in 2 parts, I'll be forced to vote against the first one, not knowing what the outcome will be for the second one. If it's as one motion, I'll vote in favour of it.
Thank you. So currently it's written with the word "and," so they become joined up. And we have a mover and a seconder, is that correct? Yes. Is that correct? Thank you. Councillor Ford.
So thank you, Councillor Hadfield, for answering my question. And that, unless I hear anything that changes my mind further, I will probably reluctantly support number 2, because I'm keen for a similar outcome to what we achieved in May. That's where I'm coming from. And so I don't think 2's required, but given that Councillor Hadfield would vote against the substantive or the motion if 2's not included, I will probably support 2 to try and achieve as close to what where we ended up in May. So it's a bit of a funny reason for voting for something, but because I do actually think it's superfluous and harmless. So it probably doesn't. So from my point of view, it doesn't really matter. I don't think it needs to be there, but I will vote for it unless I hear anything to the contrary. And that may be of interest to other colleagues.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Blackmore.
Thank you. Given the second part, we have no choice in what Shane has outlined, but also given the fact that runs contrary to some of our fundamental principles around this table, I'm wondering whether those of us who are opposed to that could abstain from the second part, from voting the second part.
A point
If it was kept separate.
Point of order, we've actually got a motion on the table. It's actually one motion.
Thank you. So yours, as the mover, you are saying it is come in as one motion, which is what the correction has just been made as one motion. Councillor McFadyen, you are still comfortable to second the motion?
Yes, there's one motion.
Thank you. Councillor Underwood.
I was just thinking because it's a matter of law and one therefore runs into the other. I'm wondering whether the word "and" should be "therefore," because as a natural consequence of that first part, the second part is going to happen. And therefore, it's not we're voting two separate things. We're doing this, and therefore, this is going to happen.
Yeah, you could argue it's pedantic, but yeah, it does actually make a difference whether you say "and" or "therefore," because it's acknowledging that the law says we then must. Yeah. So our mover and our seconder.
Yep.
Thank you. Comments, Councillor Short.
I still feel very conflicted if it's all put together because I can't support a referenda, even if it's the law, and I would have abstained if we were voting on them separately.
Councillor Bell.
I just want to echo Councillor Quarry's that this is quite a contentious, sensitive topic. For me today, my priority on behalf of my constituents is to save this ward. And if it requires an "and" where we obviously explicitly say that we will then have to go through a referendum, then I'm satisfied with that. If it's just a linguistics, then I'm satisfied. It's starting to concern me when I start hearing the words "we're going to abstain." I still would like everyone to participate in this process. I don't support Māori wards being singled out to have a referendum. I don't. However, I recognise the clarity that you're seeking, Councillor Hadfield. And if that's what's going to get this over the line, then I'll sit with that and accept that today. And I'm going to plead with my other councillors to think and consider that too. That is more important.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Hadfield.
Yeah, thank you, Worship, and thank you, Councillor Bell. And I think I'll just refer back to your comment. I think in looking at the local government remits the other day, we actually supported the notion that all wards should be subject. And I'm just noting that as well. Yep.
Correct. That is consistent with this council. Any final questions, comments? Councillor Quarry.
Just to clarify, we are voting on the amendment, not on the actual motion.
No, there was the motion. This is the motion that came through. There was no mover and seconder of a motion previous to this. This is the motion that we are voting on.
Oh, well, I'd like to pass a few comments in regard to whether we vote for it or not. I don't want to regurgitate old material that everyone knows what I've said, but I'd like to refer to a couple of items in the news that have recently come from mayors from other districts. One of them stated how important a Maori ward was. She then went on to mention that 52% of their population signified as being Maori. Now, is that the tyranny of the majority? Or is that just a nonsense? 52% of the population of Gisborne are Maori or identify as Maori. Why on earth do they need a Maori ward? The same applies in Napier. The Mayor of Napier stated they have 2 who identify as Maori in a general ward. The previous election, 4 stood and 3 got elected. Now, why is there any requirement for a race-based ward? To me, those 2 comments are a nonsense, a total and complete nonsense. When you have a majority of the population and you still expect a Maori ward It's rubbish. So I'd just like to point those two things out. They've come out in the last couple of weeks.
Thank you. Right, so we have the motion. It's been moved and seconded. The wording is there on the screen. So I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Those against? Councillor Quarry, do you wish your motion, to be noted?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. So the motion is carried. Thank you. And Councillor Forge, you will be pleased to see that we retained the same vote that we did on the 16th of May. So thank you for your participation and the patience to get this right, because it is important. Thank you. Okay, right, let's thank you to our iwi friends in the gallery. Thank you for joining us this morning. Right, we move to 10.2. We're on page 19. This is the Daybreaker Rally 2024, seeking road closure for 4 stages of the rally coming up next month. So you have all the details there in front of you, where this is proposed. We did receive one objection that has been worked through with the rally organisers, and we have the result of that in the report as well. So I'll hand over to our team. Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning, Mayor and councillors. I'm here this morning to request the approval for the closure of various roads as listed under the report's recommendations section in order to allow Rally Race Group to undertake the Daybreaker Rally on Saturday, 14th of September 2024, and that's run under permit from Motorsport Motorsport New Zealand.
Did you want to take a question through? Sorry.
Yes, we can. Thank you. So, sorry, Amy, I didn't want to interrupt what you were saying.
No.
You're right?
I did.
Okay. Councillor McFadden.
I'm somewhat confused. I read in the paper, the digital paper the other day, that it's coming. They've announced the Daybreaker Rally is coming to the Manawatu. Is this superfluous? Is it all?
No, it's
missing something?
It's part of the legal process.
Part of the process, but you're right. They have been marketing the events for some time. Subject to today's discussion.
I thought perhaps I might have been asleep.
Sorry, Amy, we'll let you carry on.
No, it's okay. So after a successful 2023 event, Daybreaker is back for 2024, well, pending today's approval, with 5 of the 11 stages being held on Manawatu District Council roads. In addition to the race stages, there are 2 free public events being held in Fielding on the Saturday. A Meet the Drivers session between 10:30 and 12 at the old Right Price car park, where cars will be held for 30 minutes each, while the service park is established. Fans can then follow their favourite cars down to the second event, the service park at Manfield, and watch the service in action. And these events are expected to be popular with high-profile drivers such as Hayden Paddon, Emma Gilmore, Ben Hunt, Robbie Stokes and Jack Hawkswood competing in the rally. Promotion of these events will be undertaken both by the Daybreaker and Fielding and District Promotions. Promotional footage of the rally taken last year had a global reach, and film crews will be in place this year capturing the action, with the opportunity existing to feature and promote Fielding in the Manawatu District once again. I would like to highlight that Special Stage 9, Tunipo, which requested the closure of Umitoa North Road and Tunipo Road, has been removed from the rally. The closure was advertised in the Fielding Rangitikei Herald on 18th of July. The closure information was also provided to the Waituna West, Kimbolton, Apiti, Rangiwahia and Pahangana Valley Community Committees for distribution to residents. In addition to this, the organisers carried out visits and letter drops on all the roads to be closed. The objection period closed on the 31st of July. 1 objection was received. The objection related to the restriction of access between blocks of land for animal husbandry and the perceived condition of the road.
The organisers met with the objecting party and resolved to provide an escort in order to allow access between blocks of land. Any damage caused to the roads due to the rally would be recouped from the organisers. I'm happy to take any questions. Otherwise, I point you towards the recommendation of the report.
Thank you. Can I just clarify, Amy? So you're saying the special section 9,
Yes.
Tūnapo, we take out?
Yeah.
That's correct.
Yes, please.
Correct. Thank you. Right, open it up for questions, comments. Councillor Short.
Thank you. More of a comment. This is a pretty big event. While I didn't attend it last year, I did watch the video that they sent of it, which was played internationally in car channels, which I'm sure the chief executive probably watches. And it's pretty big and it's pretty impressive. And I actually think we should be proud to host it.
And if I could, Your Worship, on that point, both the Chief Executive and I attended the motorsport conference down in Christchurch earlier this year on separate capacities, but that videography and the promotional content from the event won one of the award categories there. And I think the value of that promotion for our district is, as you say, quite fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you. And the good news is they have the same MC. They've brought him out from the UK's to do it again. So, and he's pretty passionate about this district. Councillor McFadden.
Thank you, Worship. I actually would like to commend their handling of the objection.
Thank you. Councillor Belsky.
Yeah, I agree with that. Just last statement, because it's in the middle of lambing, and I see one of the roads are closed at 6:30 to 2 p.m. And 6:30 is pretty early and dark. Well, it might not be now, but it's can you tell me when it was held last year? What month?
It was September. I think it was September last year.
Yeah,
Oh,
it was a 20 something. I can't remember exactly, but very similar.
No, I think it's yeah, it's a bit of a I'm pleased you've talked to the farmer and gone through the solution, because there are blocks of land in lambing and carving and things like that. So it's good to have that communication, but I'm also quite pleased that there's only one objection, because it does bring a lot of money into our lower district. Yeah.
If I could, Your Worship, I think picking up Councillor McFadden's earlier point, there is quite a process that goes around these road closures for private events. And whilst it has been advertised, there's obviously a commercial element to make sure that they've got the marketing and the promotion of that. So it's not a level of arrogance by the promoter that assuming it will be done. It's just the sequencing and timing of their event plus our process we need to work through overlapping. Yep.
Thank you. Councillor McFadden.
Thank you for your explanation. I do confess it was a tongue-in-cheek statement.
Just making sure.
Councillor Blackmore.
I'm just curious as to whether there are any issues after last year's, anything that needed to be addressed? No, nothing
at all.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. The guys that run this also run the Southern Lights, so that they're probably New Zealand's leading rally firm, and they do a pretty good job. So.
Thank you. Councillor Ford.
Your Worship, I'm happy to recommend the motion.
Thank you.
Want me to read it?
Yes, please.
Pursuant to section 342B in the 10th schedule of the Local Government Act 1974, for the purpose of allowing Rally Race Group to conduct the Daybreaker Rally 2024, the following roads be closed to ordinary vehicular traffic from the times as indicated for each stage on Saturday, the 14th of September 2024, subject to the receipt of the public liability and insurance policy, which will be current at the time of the event, and a traffic management plan prepared by an authorised site traffic management supervisor and in accordance with the New Zealand Transport Agency Code of Practice of Temporary Traffic Management, as per the schedule below, with the exception of SS9 Tūnapo, being deleted.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Short. Thank you. No further discussion. Councillor Underwood.
Just because special section 9 has been withdrawn, I thought it important to point out that on page 29, that schedule there, special section 9 is referred to as Macbeth on that table instead of Tūnapo, is it? Tūnapo Road, which is mentioned earlier.
Yeah, I think if you focus on the recommendation that council's resolving, The background information in terms of the terminology is probably less relevant than the wording of the actual recommendation that council confirms.
Thank you. Right, so have a mover and a seconder. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Motion is carried. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea. Right, let's take a break for morning Right, team, thank you. Let's reconvene. So we are up to item 10.3 on page 37. This is seeking the adoption of our community honours policy, which was up for review, and it's come back to us today with some minor edits recommended. But I'm going to hand over to Ash and Francis.
Thanks, Worship. Yeah, as you say, the edits are pretty minor. We've taken out the references to the Community Development Committee for obvious reasons and replaced that with Council. And we've filled out section 2 of the policy just with a bit more information around the nomination criteria. And aside from that, we've added the actual nomination form onto the end of the policy, just to be a little more transparent about what people are filling out when they apply. Aside from that, I'm happy to answer any questions. We will get to the actual nominations for this year's ceremony in the public excluded section, and that's where we'll also talk about the scoring matrix.
Thank you. Thanks, Ash. So any questions, comments in regards to what's been proposed? Councillor Underwood.
I realise this hasn't been amended, but I'm just wondering in the purpose where it's gone above and beyond, whether we could put something there that it's gone above and beyond something. It just seems to be a bit. It needs a noun, doesn't it? Yeah, I know, but above and beyond.
Well, but above and beyond is a saying.
What is expected, or I mean, I've heard above and beyond the call of duty. I suppose it's not relevant, but you know, it's to me it seems like it needs something above and beyond. But
yeah,
it's just a comment.
Yeah, no, thank you. We can have a bit of a play with that word.
Thank you. Anything further? Otherwise, we have two recommendations. One there is to adopt without amendment, and one with any amendments we may wish to have. Councillor Ford.
I'm happy to move that the council adopts the updated community honours policy attachment 1 without amendment.
Thank you. I have a seconder, please. Councillor McFadyen, thank you. No further discussion. Councillor Belsky.
I've just been a little bit confused with the policy on the honours, community honours. I was under the impression that it was basically volunteers that got the award, all volunteer time, but does it include paid time?
We don't specifically say they must be volunteers. Above and beyond kind of refers to anybody who's done over and above what's been expected, what would be expected.
Oh, okay.
But I'll refer back to you, Ash.
Yeah. I mean, you touched on a good point. Voluntary service is generally prioritised, if you will, but we haven't specifically excluded people whose service wasn't volunteer. And I think there have been past instances where they've gotten through. But you might say that their service of pay perhaps needs to be at a higher level than for voluntary people. But that's up to you, of course, to decide at the time.
Yeah, I just thought it opens up a whole field when you get a lot of good people that are working and getting paid, and against those that are basically putting their best foot forward and volunteering and doing a huge amount of work volunteer. That's all. I just wanted to get a clarity on it.
Thank you. I think the thinking behind it was not to exclude somebody who's potentially being paid for a job, but goes over and above what that paid job role job description is. So it's so that they're not excluded from it. But obviously in the decision making, the fact that someone is a volunteer,
it would be volunteer time.
It needs to be weighted. Correct. Councillor Ford.
Yes, I just look under criteria 2.1, the 1 to 3rd bullet point. Voluntary nature of the service. Voluntary service is generally prioritised. However, non-voluntary service, example paid work, may be considered in exceptional circumstances. So it really has to be exceptional. And I think the example that Her Worship gave, perhaps if I can think of one where someone probably had paid work of 40 hours a week, but put 80 hours a week into a particular community type service job. So you could say, well, okay, half of that was paid. So we're not really taking that part into account. It's more the above and beyond whatever Fiona's wording is going to end up being. But above and beyond what was expected in the job.
Yeah.
So, and that's an actual example I can think of. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Short.
I think Michael largely said what I was going to say, but I think that's always been in there, and I can only think of one that we've received a nomination for, which is probably the same one that Councillor Ford's referring to. So it's not opening a floodgate of nominations.
Thank you. Councillor Campbell.
I'm just wondering about the definition of impact and how you define that. It could be anything really, and whether we should be refining that or defining it a little bit more, and perhaps by use of examples of something, otherwise it's fairly open-ended, which, maybe our wish to have a fairly open-ended discretionary policy. We may, how do you really determine how big an impact it is? And I'm thinking about the applications we've had this year.
Yeah. But I think in a policy, the idea is not to shut off any options. It's to keep the door open. And then what you're talking about gets taken into consideration when you're actually considering the specific nominations.
Yeah, the scoring matrix we'll talk about in public excluded might also be another avenue to perhaps think about some examples that might help guide members in future.
Yeah. Thank you. Councillor Hadfield.
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. Look, I don't think the policy needs to be too prescriptive, and I don't think we need to get too bound up in detail, because at the end of the day, the final arbiter on any application or any nomination actually is council.
Yes.
And I think that's the final doorstop. So look, I don't have an issue with the broad sense of actually what the policy is about.
Yep.
Because council elected members have the final say.
Thank you. Councillor Ford, did you?
Just briefly, when we as councillors receive the
nominations.
Well, yeah, the nominations, but the template for considering them as a guideline, which we don't have to follow the template, but those of us who did, the impact was given the most points, 10, and the others I think were 5. Is that right, Ash?
I think you're right from memory.
Yep. So the impact is probably the main thing, but it can be, it could be somebody who's done something huge over a period of a few months, or it could be somebody who's done something consistently, but not as major over 30 years. So
yeah,
that's why it's pretty hard to perhaps define impact too precisely.
Councillor McFadden.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think also it gives the community a little bit of clarity around what we're actually assessing and what's required. So, there's a lot of people that obviously believe that someone deserves a nomination, but don't necessarily appreciate why perhaps they didn't get it. And I think that helps. This helps with the clarity of that. But I also take on board Councillor Hadfield's point about ultimately it's our decision.
Thank you. Right, so we just confirming we have a mover and a seconder, correct? Yes, great. Right, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Motion is carried. Thank you. We move to the adoption of our community development policy. We're on page 47. Again, this was due for review. There have been some changes proposed so that this policy is now in line with our LTP. And so we're on page 47. Welcome, team. I'll hand it over to you.
Morning, Nakoto, and good morning, everyone. As Your Worship mentioned, we have essentially two policies, two reports that are, I guess, need to be adopted as a result of decisions and resolutions that were passed 2.5 months ago as part of the LTP deliberations. What I would like to do now is just briefly go through the key changes there and of the community development policy that essentially has one new clause in relation to Madai and Hapu implementation funds. So that's clause 8. There is three minor changes in relation to Madai Committee Project Fund and the accountability requirements, as well as application process, clause 6.6. Again, the changes or the amendments here hopefully shouldn't really come as a surprise in the sense that they essentially give effect to what council agreed on in May, on 23rd of May. And I guess on that note, I would like to open the floor for discussion and questions.
Thank you. Any questions, comments? Councillor Bell.
Thank you for the work, team, that you've done to make amendments to this. There's something I want to share with our governance team. Last week on Monday, Helen, Her Worship, Deputy Mayor, the CE, myself met with the Te Kotu Reo chairs. One of the chairs is the representative of Ngāti Te Ao. They sit in the Manawatu district. And she expressed strongly her disappointment that Ngāti Te Ao, who have engaged with council, sit in Te Kotu Reo, have an appointed councillor, which is Councillor Blackmore, participated in the LTP hearings and LTP submissions, have not been included in this particular fund. So I would like to suggest that we reconsider and not just look at physical marae. The reason why they've been left out is because when we in the deliberations allocated the money, we focused on the infrastructure, so the physical marae. Ngāti Te Ao don't have a physical marae, but they still meet on their land. They have a shed there. They still have an entity. They have a trust deed. They still exist. They're still a community. They want to know what's different. What's the difference between them, Kōwhata, and the valley? There isn't, other than the fact that they don't have a house. I would like to make a comparison so it's easy for you to understand. Every community is still a community, whether or not they have a hall or not. Waituna, Rangiotu, Halcombe. If the hall disappears, the community still exists. Ngāti Te Ao still have whenua. They're a growing population, and they would like to be included in all aspects of these funds that were requested through LTP. So I guess I'm putting something on the floor that it won't just be an amendment to the name, which will be marae and hapu, but it will then obviously lead to the discussion of then how we allocate the funds, because there's someone missing out.
Thank you. So as Shane pointed out, the money that we approved through the LTP was for projects. So on that basis, even though they don't physically have a marae, they still own land. So there are still projects, etc., that can be considered. So you might be able to help me, Axel, with the wording that would need to be considered to be changed.
So that would be clause
6.3 onwards.
6.4? And actually really throughout. Sorry, Axel. It's going to be throughout.
Yeah, 6.4, there's a sentence there that says this funding is not available to marae that are no longer standing or yet to be established and working.
Yeah.
So that sentence, if we were supportive of what councillor Bell is suggesting, would not be appropriate. Open that up for comment. Councillor McFadyen.
Yeah, just that point, Your Worship. I think I don't have a problem with the not standing, but not established. I'd still probably like to leave the not established in there. Okay.
Absolutely, they're established.
Yeah, that's right.
Yep.
You know, I'm supporting that. I'm just saying that, I
not
think
right.
the worship said we should maybe take that clause out, and I'm suggesting we amend that suggestion to saying that not take out the non-standing, but leave in the not established. So, i.e., if they're not there, they're excluded. Sorry, I mean in the sense of being established as an
entity.
As an entity.
But the sentence says that the fund would not be available if it was yet to be established.
Yeah, and I'm saying yet to be established.
But that's referring to the mid-eye though.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I understand that. I'm saying yet to be established as an entity, but I understand what you're saying about the Moai, the bills, the physical, to include that, to that group. Maybe I'm expressing myself, but yeah, it's about saying that I'm just not keen on leaving it open. So if there's a new entity gets established, that they automatically have an entitlement for that funding.
Councillor McFadyen, can I just bring closure? There won't be a new entity because that means a new hapu would then have tribal boundaries and they would enter our space. And I tell you now, Te Kōturu won't be very happy. It'll be like 1835 all over again. So no, we are settled here to stay. Everyone that sits in Te Kōturu is established. I just want to be clear on the wording though, Councillor McFadyen. I want to be careful that we don't criteria what establishment means. That yes, there's an entity because all the communities, each hapu, belong here, and whether they have a trust deed or not, they're established as in they exist and they're a community. We don't put criteria on our community rural groups that they have to have an entity. They're still a community whether they do or don't.
I accept what you're saying. I thank you for your explanation.
Thank you.
Thank you. I hand it over to Shane.
Excuse me, I think there's two bits here. The first one is that council agrees that the fund that was established is for projects that can be undertaken. So if that's the case, regardless of whether Marae is there or it isn't there, there would have to be established a project to qualify for the fund. So I think that in itself is what, if you like, protects the fund. The purpose of the fund is that there needs to be a project. If it is by hapu or that don't have a marae, they may well be doing something on the whenua or the land where the marae would have been, and there are a number now in the district where there have been marae, and they're not there now. So that's for council to decide, but I see that's the difference we're actually debating is, does it have to be a standing marae to qualify, or can any of the marae, whether they're there or not, qualify for this funding for a project? Does that sum it up pretty much?
Yeah. So if you look at the wording in blue that was to be added under 6.4 funding round, it does have the word there, active marae. Now the question, what is the interpretation of active marae? Does that mean something standing, or it's wider than that? Councillor Bell.
I also was going to ask the same question and make a suggestion is, be careful to use the word active in the sense that every member of Te Kōturu is active. So it could be that we signal to Te Kōturu who's part of that membership.
Okay, so you could argue that, do we even need some
We
words
don't.
there?
We
can
probably
take
don't need active.
those words in blue under 6.4 out. I guess if you follow that question, follow that conversation through, is the name right then? Community and Marae Committee Project Funds.
Her Worship, I think I would like to suggest an amendment of community, marae and hapu, because Ngā Titio are a hapu, and that's how they have, identified themselves in the Te Kōturu membership. This also means it's very sensitive because how we decide this here, could make implications for Te Koto e Reo, who are currently finalising their new terms of reference of who is a member of Te Koto e Reo. What is their relevance in Te Koto e Reo if they don't have equity with the other marae and hapu?
Thank you. So what we're hearing is that it perhaps does need some tweaking. We have to get the wording right. So if we're comfortable with the direction that Councillor Bell is suggesting, that it is inclusive of hapu as well, it may be worth us leaving this on the table and letting the team come back at a further meeting with having some time to get the wording correct, that it is all inclusive.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sounds good.
I think the wording and the terminology needs to be right. So that, everybody is aware of what the policy allows for. And I think there's a bit of work to do, just to make sure we nail that. And I think to try to do it on the hoof here in council is the wrong thing to do.
Thank you. We'll finish the discussion. Councillor Hadfield.
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. Look, I don't have an issue so long as I assume we're working within predetermined budgets. I'm assuming. So, but the question I've got is under 6.6, and I'll just note payment for community committees in the Manawatu Youth Council is upon receipt of invoices for agreed projects, and payment from marae committees will be made upon approval. Now, I'm just wondering why we don't hold one standard for everybody. I personally consider, might be pedantic, but at the end of the day, we need to hold everybody to account for spending ratepayers' money. And I think if we have one standard for, we should have one standard across the board. So only my view, happy to, whatever colleagues think.
Lynn.
I'm just looking, thank you, Your Worship. I'm just looking through the policy because there is somewhere in the policy, either this one or the next one, where it says payment is made on receipts need to be provided at the end of the period. I'm just trying to find where that is.
Well, I'd probably just then suggest that actually the two policies need to align with each other then.
Yeah.
Thank you. So that's a point to consider. Gerald.
If I can just comment on that, Your Worship. The reason being that, as I understand it, that the youth group and others submit their work is actually the council's paying for it. Because some of them don't have their own set of accounts, whereas all marae have accounts. So you can actually pay them the money, then they will come back with, as per the agreed project, with the invoices attached to show this is how we're paid, how we've used the money.
Thank you. I think the point that Councillor Hadfield's saying is that whichever way we go, it needs to be consistent across community committees and anybody else that we're giving funding to, which currently for community committees is they pay the bill and then come back to us for reimbursement. Councillor McFadden.
Yes, Your Worship, the other factor to consider is that we encourage the community committees to submit the invoice to the council to pay directly. And that way, the council gets the GST back. If they pay it and seek it, reimbursement, they lose 15% GST content. So I'm sure we all encourage them to do that directly. So if there's a project, they end up, and effectively they end up with more money out of their to use rather than losing some of it in GST. Is that correct, Lynn?
I mean, it's a grant. So yes, when we are paying invoices, yes, we can claim GST off it, but from a budget perspective, we're still allocating the same amount.
But we can only claim the GST if it's invoiced directly to the council. If it's invoiced to a marae or something and then submitted to the council cannot, then the GST doesn't, it actually then gets swallowed up and gets lost.
Yeah, I think that's outside the, what's intended with this policy. And I just point to 8.4 in that policy. It talks about accountability requirements for marae, and there it does require that marae or hapu committees to provide receipts or invoices, depending, with their reports. So
Thank you. So that one can be, have a look at it, make sure that we've got that consistent. Councillor Blackmore.
Thank you. I just wonder on that funding piece, if I just reflect back on some of our experience getting Colleton Committee going, you know, a lot of excitement about the ability to do things for their community, and then realising that they'd have to front the cost and be reimbursed as a group of volunteers. That didn't land particularly well. Not everyone has the ability to pay those things, and so I wonder just more broadly whether we could look at those options for people rather than having to do it that way around. And on the marae hapu point, I recall back at the LTP discussion, Parewahawaha was also excluded from that because they're not strictly in our boundary, though the community, the marae is not the boundary, though the community is in our boundary. So just flagging perhaps when that's looked at, just to consider that group as well, because they are a member of Te Kotu Reo.
Thank you. So there's a few things there that good thing to leave it on the table and get the wording correct, and then to come back to us. Shane.
Just so the team's got a direction. So has council agreed with what Councillor Bell's proposing? So do we have general agreement that we would go away and amend the policy along the lines of what Councillor Bell is proposing?
Yep.
Is that where you want us to go? Because we need a direction of council to go away and rewrite this.
Also remembering that we have already determined the budget that's available for this. Yep. So it doesn't change the budget. The budget is what it is. It's just who has the ability to apply to use it.
Yep.
Councillor Underwood and Councillor Ford.
I just wanted to clarify with the community committees, when you've got one in recess and they're not meeting, the other, to get funding, the community committees are supposed to meet regularly and have a committee and have meetings regularly. And with the marae, whether they have a marae building or not, if they have a committee that meets regularly, then again, they would qualify under that active definition.
Yeah, that's the intent, but just remembering this fund is about projects.
Yeah, it's a project.
So this is a project-based fund. So, if they have one meeting a year or 10 meetings a year, I don't know that that's too much of an issue if they are actually going to take the money and do something with it, which is what would be the requirement to qualify for the fund.
And those projects get approved on application individually.
Yep. So we've got to be careful we don't get confused with the discretionary 20K fund versus the fund that's allocated to marae and community groups, which is the 3K something or other. There's two funds there.
Two different things. Councillor Ford.
Yeah, thank you. I just think it's important while we're giving the steer to the operational team to clarify, particularly the budget. So and I probably don't agree with you, Your Worship, in terms of the budget being the same. My understanding is that there's a request for 2 extra allocations of $3,000, one to an iwi, one to a hapu.
One to a marae and one to a hapu, yes.
To a marae, one to a hapu. Thank you, Councillor Bell.
Yes.
So I'm understanding that probably the request more relates to, and correct me if I'm wrong, but an additional $6,000 being added in the annual plan for next year, as opposed to having the budget that just gets split into smaller.
Well, there's two budgets. There's the project budget and the allocation budget.
If the allocation budget should have equity, because in the LTP submissions, what Te Kotu Reo asked was equity to the community groups that received $3,000 a year.
Yep.
So Parewahawaha and Ngāti Tio have requested that they also receive the $3,000 each. So it is an extra $6,000.
That's what I'm,
Which goes through annual plan.
which I believe is an annual plan issue, but
Yep.
it's probably contrary to what councillor Hadfield and your worship were thinking.
And in terms of the $20,000 budget, which is the project fund, they accept, Te Kōtero accept that with an extra 2 added, that it will obviously mean that they have to work within those means.
Yeah.
But what was
Which is what I was
specifically asked
referring
for is the extra 3,000 times 2.
So that being a funding adjustment would come through annual plan.
Council can approve additional funding as a separate report to council. We do unbudgeted approvals through the year. Doesn't have to be annual plan. You can decide to bring a paper to council. We can bring a paper to council requesting an additional however much to the fund to accommodate the request. That's the feeling of council. We can do that. And we
Councillor
bring the
Short.
policy back.
Councillor Short.
Yes, that's the way I interpret it, not to wait till next year's annual plan. Say, for example, Awahuri and Mount Biggs decided they'd like community committees and they went through the correct processes to establish one. Would we then ask them to wait a year before we gave them funding? Or would we find it?
No, council can approve.
Can be,
And council can approve unbudgeted expenditure throughout the year. It doesn't have to always go through just an annual plan process. I would suggest the significance of the quantum is what will dictate the process. And really, we're talking about $6,000. So that's something you can bring back to council and council can approve.
Councillor Hadfield.
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. I just actually want to seek a bit of clarity actually now, because we're actually talking about the 3,000, that each of the community and the marae get, which we've budgeted for. So is that what we're talking about, an extra 2 there? Or are we talking about the separate community fund for projects?
No.
Because actually, I have to say, I've got a bit confused.
No, so what the suggestion is that we would consider increasing the allocation to the additional marae and hapu. We would consider adding to that budget so that they each receive the same as our community committees. And then there is a budget that we approved for iwi projects, which Councillor Bell has stated that they accept that is the maximum amount of money, which will now be potentially shared by more.
Thank you.
Councillor Bell.
I'm just supporting Her Worship's comments, just to give added more clarification to Councillor Hadfield. The project fund with the $20,000, my concern was that it was stipulated here that you had to have a standing marae to apply.
Yeah. And that's the amendment to the policy that we need, if your council's comfortable with it.
Thank you. Councillor Blackmore.
Just point out that the discussion around the 3,000 allocations actually the next agenda item on the community and marae committee policy, which I suspect will need to do the same thing with.
Thank you. Councillor Quarry, you had, right. Right. Do we need a motion, or we're just signalling to leave this on the table for our team to come back as per our discussion?
We need a motion. We don't, do we?
No.
Your Worship, if I could just ask a question,
Thanks,
please.
Gerald.
I just want a clarification on the payment. I've heard one councillor state that one of the communities was unhappy being able to front foot the payment. What's your steer on that? Do you want the payment to be front footed, or they have to pay and reimburse?
Can we just clarify what the procedure is? Because Councillor McFadden was saying that the community committees can bring the invoice to council to pay.
That's right. And it does allow that here under 8.4, where hapu or marae or hapu committees provide a report with receipts or invoices attached. So, that can be paid invoices, or it can be an invoice for payment.
So it does give them either option depending on which way they want to do.
Referring back to the project.
Yep, that's the implementation fund. That's correct.
As Councillor Blackmore pointed out, the $3,000 community one is actually the next
is the next one.
agenda item. So now we're back and talking about the project fund, is that correct?
So there's no difference with the money that goes to the community committees. They still have to spend it on doing something, and they still produce the receipts, and they still produce, they produce the receipts and council pays. They produce the invoices and council pays.
Yes.
So that money, the $3,000 odd dollars is per entity is still spent on projects.
Mhm.
The $20,000 was an additional amount that
We
could be
approved.
applied for by Marae or Hapu for potentially a one-off project that they might want to do, or to be used as seed funding to access third-party funding.
So just for clarification, they would be projects that are pre-approved? Were they approved by council?
No, they're approved through the community committees. It was
Okay.
money that we made available to the community committees to do what they want to do.
So my initial query was around, trying to figure out actually, is everybody treated the same? Do they have the same options? Do they have the same process? Can they front foot it, as Gerald says, or do they back foot it, if they haven't got the cash, sort of thing? So I think we just need clarification around that.
I'd say we're happy to look at making it flexible for both parties. Right?
Yep.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Currently, it's worded as both. Yep.
Yeah, just taking on board.
That works.
Yep. Right. Thank you. So we will leave that on the table for our team to come back to us with some of the changes that we've discussed. Thank you. So the next one is on page 71 is the Community and Marae Committee policy.
I think this one has to stay there as well. Because
Yes.
that's where we need to add in the additional Marae and Hapu.
Yes, please.
Yes, even the name will need to be changed. Yes. Okay,
Yeah.
so we will.
They go together, really.
Yep.
Can I suggest, Jane, would we be able to have a workshop or a focus group for us councillors
We'll get, we'll get something together so that we can discuss how this piece.
before it hits public forum?
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. So item 10.5 is also on the table to come back to us. So we go to 10.6, approval to publicly notify the gambling venues policy, and we're on page 79. This is seeking our approval for it to go out for consultation following the review process and the discussion we had at workshop. Thanks, Lisa and Francis.
Good morning, Your Worship, councillors. So as Mayor Helen has said, the purpose of my report today is to seek approval to publicly notify the draft gambling venues policy. Council is required by the Gambling Act 2003 and the Racing Industry Act 2020 to have a policy on Class 4 gambling venues and TAB venues. We're required to review this policy every 3 years and to consult on the proposed policy using the special consultative procedure. I introduced the draft policy to you all at the 6th of June workshop, and we discussed the different approaches for limiting the number of gaming machines, being keeping the current cap of 90 machines, increasing the cap, or shifting to a sinking lid policy. The feedback I received at the workshop was that you were generally happy with the current policy and wanted to keep the cap at 90. The draft policy that's attached to my report is therefore largely a continuation of the 2021 policy. Paragraph 4.3 of my report summarises the minor changes. These are largely to ensure consistent formatting with Council's current policies, placeholders for new adoption and review dates, and updates to the explanatory notes that refer to past and future district plan changes. My report seeks approval to publicly notify the statement of proposal and draft policy. The version of the statement of proposal that was attached to my report was the plain Word version. Victoria has prepared a design version, which I understand has been sent out to you all. I can, print copies if anyone wants to see those today. She's also prepared the submission form, and that will all be made available for the public consultation period. Lindsay and Victoria have also used the information within the statement of proposal to prepare the Make Your Mark website, which will be completed prior to the engagement period. So if you approve the documents for public notification today, notice of the draft policy will be published on both our website and in the Fielding Rangitikei Herald on the 22nd of August, so that's next Thursday. The submission period is proposed to run from the 22nd of August to the 23rd of September. If you'd like to request any changes to the documents prior to notification, I'll note those today, and then those updates will be done before we go out to the public. The Act also requires us to notify corporate societies that hold Class 4 gambling venue licences in our district and organisations that represent Māori. I'm working with Gerald and Gina to confirm those parties that we are going to notify, and that will be done just prior to the website going live, and a reminder will be sent to those parties about a week out from the close of consultation, just to give them as much opportunity as possible to have their say. We're also looking to advertise a consultation on social media, but we'll direct people to the Make Your Mark website rather than encouraging discussion over social media, given the nature of the topic. The social impact assessment that informed this review is attached as Annex C to my report, and that will also be made available as a supporting document on the website for the duration of the review. I'm now happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Right, any questions, comments? Councillor Hadfield.
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. Just in terms of sinking lid, Lisa, and I've tried to find out what is our sinking lid policy.
So we don't currently have a sinking lid policy. So at the moment we have a cap, but sinking lid is one of the alternative approaches where essentially when a venue closes, those machines no longer are available. So the number of machines in the district declines over time as venues close.
So I'm pretty comfortable with the 90, but I wonder, and I haven't got any hard statistical evidence to actually to make a comment, to be honest. But if we look at the facilities that have got the maximum 18, I'm wondering if if circumstances change there, whether or not we shouldn't have a bit of a sink in terms of 18 being the maximum, even if it's 15 or 14 or whatever. I'm not necessarily suggesting we drop the 90, but if we have a bit of a sink on, a changed circumstance or a closure of a business opening a new one, is that maximum of 18 potentially sinks. Now, it's just a suggestion, but I'm also open to the fact that we're going out to consultation. If the public think then that's a good idea or whatever, I'm comfortable with that as well. But it's just a point to raise because, without really researching into a whole lot of stuff around problem gambling, I haven't got any hard facts, Lisa, to say either that's a good idea or a bad idea. But, I do support the 90, but I wonder if not, if we should have a bit of a drop in terms of change of circumstance. I'm not suggesting that current establishments with the 18 maximum have any change, but it's just a thought.
Thank you. Councillor Short.
Thank you. I don't know that we've ever had a sinking lid policy, have we?
Not to my knowledge. I think most councils kind of choose between the two approaches.
So we've had a few changes over the years. We used to have a lot more machines. Then we had a boundary change. So we lost the ones from Bunnythorpe, transferred over into Palmerston North. If we had a sinking lid, when the Rangitikei Club closed, no one would have been able to uptake those extra machines, but we didn't, and I believe that's when Rangitikei took the uptake of the
I think
left in the market by the Rangitikei Club.
I would have to go back through my data, but I think we did, there was a little bit of, we weren't at our cap when Rangitikei Club closed, and then those machines, I don't think necessarily became available, but they were already within the cap. I think we had, and yeah, those were taken up in 2023.
In the whole time I've been here, I only remember there being one year, quite a long time ago, when we proposed something quite dramatic and we got a lot of submissions. The community seems to have been a lot more comfortable in recent years. And I also want us just to keep in mind that we are actually a growing community and our population is increasing. And while I'm not necessarily saying we all support gambling venues, we do know that we have a lot of clubs and organisations who benefit from them. In fact, the new library's just benefited from them with the half basketball court that's coming. We don't really want to see all those organisations having less funding available, because probably then they'd come to us and ask for it. So,
Yeah, I think that was the balance we were trying to strike, was making sure those funds are still available and, you know, providing the entertainment and things, but also trying to manage the adverse effects of gambling.
Thank you. Councillor Underwood.
On the statement of proposal, page 3, under key findings, currently there are 5 gambling venues. And then on the next line, it says 5 of these are in Fielding and 1 in Rongatia. I think it's supposed to say 4 in Fielding and 1 in Rongatia.
I'll look at that and correct that.
And then further down, there's a statement that looks, the reference is a personal comment. I assume that means personal comment from problem gambling. They refer to councillors in that last paragraph, but I think they mean councillors, not councillors. Like you're not talking about district councillors.
Yeah, no, it was with an S. I think there was a... Yeah, I think that was an original typo and I fixed that in the design version. Yeah, that was because at the workshop, there was a question raised around why there was such a spike in the number of cases. And so we sought that feedback from the Problem Gambling Association, and their response was that, like we suspected, that there was suddenly an influx of counsellors available, and that was why more people were seeking help.
And if I could just suggest on page 5, near the top, it says the policy and the district plan do not permit. On reading that sentence, just something doesn't read right. I'm wondering if it's a double negative. I can't, I just think it doesn't, it's difficult to understand the way it's written. I'm just wondering if it could be looked at.
Sure.
Councillor Hadfield.
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. Look, so don't forget my previous comments, but look, you know, the public, this is all about the public having a say. So I'm quite happy to actually move that council approves the statement of proposal Annex A and the draft gambling venues policy, attachment 1, Annex A for public consultation.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Short. Thank you. Any further discussion? Councillor Blackmore.
Thank you. Just wondering whether the assessment of social impact of gambling goes out with this as part of the consultation.
Yes, it will be attached as a supporting document.
Table 3 is the formatting of the figures of table 3. You may have already done that, needs a look at, but it suggests that the community grants essentially double every year, and I find that interesting, and whether or not there's some explanation as to what's happening there could be useful, just for consultation.
Thank you. Francis.
Thank you. So just one other point that we wanted to discuss was in relation to the submission form. We're proposing the ability for submitters to withhold both their name and their contact details, given the from the public. Like obviously, if they're speaking at the hearing, then their name would need to be made available. But we wanted to give the community the option of withholding their name as well as their contact details. Just wanted to check if there was general support for that.
Councillor Quarry.
Yeah, I was disappointed we'd held 9 machines in reserve for quite some time, and I was disappointed to hear that they'd actually been allocated to Rongatia. I take it there's no chance of us taking them back, so to speak, or reducing a sinking lit?
No.
It's it was quite disappointing to hear that they'd been allocated.
But that's because we have a maximum cap and they were available and they applied.
Yes, but
so if we want to change it, we have to change what our direction is.
when councillor Quarry and I set up our new gambling den, we won't be able to, will we?
That's right.
I think we're at our cap. Are we at our cap,
Yes, we
Lisa,
are.
now?
Yeah.
So that's it. There won't be any more machines allowed in any venues.
Is there a reporting system on a per machine basis? So for example, if one establishment, their machines were well below other establishments, is there a mechanism to say, well, okay, you've got 18 machines, but you're only really effective on 9? Can we reduce the score in that regard?
Yeah. Yeah, our role is more in controlling where the venues can establish. The Department of Internal Affairs works more directly with the corporate societies around how they manage the proceeds and manage the machines themselves. Yeah. I'm just having a look in the legislation. I'm trying to find whether there is the ability for us to alter the maximum number of machines, because I know there are clauses within the legislation that talk around if the venue is established before a certain date, that so many machines are available. And I'm just trying to find, and I can come back to you all maybe via email when I've dug into this more around whether we can reduce the number of machines per venue. But I think it can't be applied retrospectively, is my understanding. So it would only affect going forward. And because we have a cap, it's probably would only be of benefit in the future.
Thank you. And remember that this is going out for consultation, so the community will give us a feel to have another discussion on this. Councillor Short.
Just getting back to withholding names and addresses, I support that because there may be one or two submitters who actually want to share a personal story about the circumstances of their family or friends, and they wouldn't want to be identified for doing that.
Thank you. Councillor Belsky.
Just looking through the boxes that's been ticked in 81, page 81. It's got value for money and excellence in local government, and a tick beside it, and then down and 2 forward, it does explain it a bit, but I would never have thought that they were value for money and excellent in local government. That's all. That's a good point. Having the gambling things, it may be a place to belong and grow, because some people would probably think it is a place to belong and grow with the machines. But I thought value for money and excellent in local government, I didn't think that really needed to be ticked.
Depends how you look at it. You can look at it as saying, well, it's excellent because it's third-party funding that's available for council projects, such as the library.
It's a very small portion.
You could argue either way on all of those, couldn't you?
And that's
right. We have a motion. Did we get a seconder? We did. Okay. So I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Motion is carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, we now go to page 134. We're on 10.7. You will recall that we asked our team to have a look at, we suggested having a look at honorariums for the volunteers who sit on the Fielding Civic Centre Trust and the Awahuri Forest Kitchener Park Trust. So our team have come back with that, and the papers there in front of us to consider. Marie and Lynn.
Morena, Your Worship and councillors. As you've introduced, Mayor Helen, council did request us to look at this. So in the paper you'll see quite a bit of research of similar purpose CCOs and honorarium payments that have been provided for council to consider. So the first question is whether council does recommend honorariums are introduced. And if so, officers are recommending $1,000 per trustee per annum. This is with consideration to the similarity, particularly for Fielding Civic Centre Trust, with the Regent and Globe Theatres in Palmerston North, kind of comparable in the council funding they receive, their purpose and location. At $1,000 per trustee, the total financial impact would be $15,000 per annum. with the maximum number of trustees that are available for each of those trusts. Currently, there is no budget, and so we're recommending that if honorariums are to be paid, that they commence in the 25-26 financial year. And so there's two options there, either from existing grants, which I would not think would be palatable with the trusts, as that would impact their operating funding, or it's fully rates funded through the 25-26 annual plan process. One point to note that there are tax PAYE implications for the trust, and the trust would be required to undertake the tax payments there. And so open for discussion.
Thank you. Councillor Hadfield.
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. Clearly, I support the payment of an honorarium to our trustees of both Awahuru Forest Kitchener Park and the Fielding Civic Centre. Just reflecting back on conversations we had during the long-term plan process. Actually, prior to that even, when we discussed the removal of exemptions from CCO reporting for both those trusts, is that even I can remember what I said, strangely enough, and that was that I'd support those exemptions if honorariums were paid. So clearly, in having thrown out that challenge in a way, I have, and all the stuff we looked at for the long-term plan, missed 15 grand in a budget for what I assumed actually would take place more immediately than the 1st of July next year. So I'm very supportive of recognising the great work that our volunteer trustees do, but I'm very keen to actually see that happen sooner rather than later.
Councillor Short.
Very unusually, I completely agree with Councillor Hadfield. As you know, I've been making this request about honorariums probably 5 to 10 years now. It would be a shame if we waited to the first day of the financial year next year, when some very long serving members of those committees would have left. I was going to suggest, what about something more along the lines of the 1st of October or the 1st of December, maybe? Not retrospective to the end of the financial year, just from a start point forward.
Councillor Belsky.
I'm very much in favour of them getting this contribution for their time. We were at a show at the Civic Centre the other night, and it was fantastically run, and they were all around, and the volunteers that make up the trust were working full time. And yeah, I would agree if Councillor Short, if we could move it, it's 15,000. I'm sure it could be found in this financial year. To start 1st of October, I think another year away is, to me, it's too much, but I value their time, their professionalism, and the park down here is wonderful, a lot of work, and running of the Civic Centre is a lot of work. So I would, I would support this 100%, but to start earlier, I would even support that. Thank you.
So can I just ask a question of Lynn? So if the consideration is starting the payment partway through a council financial year, does that muck things up, or is it cleaner to be a financial year the same as their contracts work?
Thank you, Your Worship. I think it doesn't matter when it starts. I'm assuming that Shane would have delegation, because we don't have the money, have a delegation to be able to find $15,000 to be able to do that. And the idea is that we would pay one payment. We wouldn't drip feed it. It would just be one payment a year. So doesn't matter whether it's now or October or December, whenever.
Thank you.
It would normally be at the beginning of each financial year.
Thank you. Right, councillor Quarry.
Yeah, I support, well, I don't have any objections to trustees being paid, but I believe it's got to come from within the system and it shouldn't be another burden on ratepayers. There's got to be financial savings within our organisation to cover it. And that applies for any additional funding that we approve in this fashion. I'd also like to point out that the chairman of the Takawa Trust would put in more, if not twice as much, as what other trustees pay. So once we embark upon a policy of paying people for doing certain tasks, voluntary tasks, we then open up the door for having to pay others. And it becomes a case of, what about me, or what about this situation? And so that becomes a situation where we can get ourselves into a little bit of trouble by saying, oh, well, someone can have it, but someone else can't. Now, in the case of Rongotia, there is a hang of a lot of voluntary work done in regard to the maintenance and the servicing and running of that building. Without the voluntary work, it would cost 10 times more if someone was paid to do it. So that, I believe, is a consideration we have to consider, in that it won't only apply to Kitchener Park or the Fielding Civic Centre. There are other people that would spend as much time, if not more, doing similar work. And that's something else we have to be aware of.
Thank you. So the question I have in relation to this, that this says that it applies to directors, to council organisations or council-controlled organisations. So is the Takawa Trust either of those? No. So therefore, if you wanted to include any other groups like that, you would have to change the intention of this, because it's only available to council organisations or council-controlled organisations. Councillor Short.
Yeah, so you wish, look, you know, I'd support councillor Short's suggestion that we, if we're able to, we kick this on effective the 1st of October. You know, that's 3/4 of 15 grand. That's what, 11,750 or something. Amanda can work that out. You know, and if I'd suggest that if the chief executive's got discretion around that we actually do it as a sign of actually good faith for what I think is a very worthwhile cause. And you know, I think specific to councillor Quarry's query is specifically we are actually dealing around council organisations or CCOs, you know, so I think it's quite relevant.
Councillor Short.
Thank you. Just in response to councillor Quarry, I understand where you're coming from, but they possibly could self-fund that from their own funds, like Sensen does. Sensen has one person who's the caretaker and booking officer for the hall, well, helps with the booking, still does the booking, and she gets paid a small honorarium, and that comes from the income that the hall generates.
Thank you. Shane.
Thank you, Worship. Look, I don't think part payment. I think if we're going to approve this honorarium this year, it's not like they've only been a trustee for 9 months. They've actually been a trustee for a year.
Yes.
So I think if you're going to do it, let's give them the honorarium of $1,000. If it's going to come out of this year, then I'll just add a little bit into the thing that council accepts this as unbudgeted. And approves this as unbudgeted expense. And that way I just can use our delegated authorities to just do it.
Thank you. Councillor McFadden.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I have some concerns around it. And Councillor Quarry's point, we have chair people of community groups who put in a huge number of hours. And, you know, whilst it's not 1,000, you know, it's not a lot of money. And then we have other organisations, and I'm not including me in this because I'm standing down, but you have water scheme committee people that put in a lot of chairmen that put a lot of hours that don't get paid anything. So I understand where you're coming from. I just think that there doesn't seem a lot of, and there's a heap of them out there that do a lot. And I'm just a bit worried that we're going to create a precedence that we're going to spend a lot of time trying to defend. And Whether we actually sit there and say, well, let's review who we do give an honorarium to for next year's budget and approve this, I'd be comfortable with, but I don't think we should forget those other people.
Councillor Bell.
I think one of the, I guess, fundamental things we can all agree upon is our volunteers are all amazing, right? And we're really stuck in the position of how do we honour them? And there's other ways we can honour them. I think I've raised this before where there's opportunities where we can really acknowledge our volunteers. And I think that's an area that we could possibly improve on. I do support Awahuri Forest and the 15,000 and the CCO has been supported by us. I just want to touch on something that we might want to consider when we start comparing. When we talk about whether it's a Stanway Water Scheme or rongotia and community halls, a lot of the time those volunteers, yes, they're volunteers, they live in those areas and they benefit from the time that they're putting in. You know, you're not going to have a rangawahia member sitting on the Stanway Water Scheme. You're going to have people that are residents that are in there volunteering their time because they benefit off the scheme. It's the same with rongotia. You're not going to have a resident from Sanson that's coming in to volunteer their time for rongotia. So let's put into context here for the Awahuri Forest, that is accessible for all. Everyone benefits. The same with the Civic Centre. So if we have to be very careful on how we articulate in the comparison of volunteers when sometimes your voluntary position is because you yourself you know, positively impacted by that time.
Can I ask Councillor McFadden?
I think what you're saying there is actually gives me comfort in that, in the sense of saying we're giving this honorarium where it's in the wider community good.
Correct.
Yeah, and I support it under that basis, whereas a local, where you do get a local contribution, we just need a demarcation or some way of explaining why we, right? And so using that as an explanation, and it's not just CC, it's really just sitting there and saying it's because it's for total community good, not for, you know, for the whole region, not just for the local community. And I thank you for your explanation.
So the question I have is, where does the Manawatu Community Trust sit in this then?
They already get paid.
They already get, oh, they do, they get paid. Yep, that's right.
Yeah,
Thank
but
you.
we do not give them a grant though. They generate their own.
And Cedar, yeah. Councillor Underwood.
Under 2.7, where it says remuneration of directors of CCOs is a matter of public interest, does that generate a need for community engagement? It's not of significant public interest, I gather.
No.
Doesn't trip our significance engagement.
Councillor Hadfield.
Yeah, Your Worship, look, I'm happy to actually throw a motion on the table if I can sort of crack some words around it, and that would be that that council approves payment of an honorarium to Awahuri Forest, Kitchener Park and Fielding Civic Centre trustees, and at the rate of, would that be the way to go, Shane?
Yep.
Rate of $1,000 per trip.
I've just sent a potential resolution to Steph via email. That might be useful.
Okay,
Oh,
let's see how that goes.
Let's wait for it because I've just forgotten what I said.
Yeah. So let's give Steph a chance to find out and pop it up on the screen.
I could actually read it out while Steph is finding it. Now I just have to find my sent one. So the first line that's in the paper, as you said, grant payment of an honorarium to Awahuri Forest, Kitchener Park and Fielding Civic Centre trustees. And then council commits to the payment of an honorarium to Awahuri Forest, Kitchener Park Trust, Fielding Civic Centre trustees from this financial year of $1,000 per trustee per annum, and that this is fully rates funded. Council accepts that this is unbudgeted for the 2024-2025 financial year.
Thank you. So Lynn has sent those to you. Okay.
Okay.
Cool. Okay, so councillor Hadfield, have a look at that and see if that fits with what you were intending.
Yes, because from means ongoing, doesn't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
We just in that way, it means that for future years, we will fit the payments and that into the
Into the
budgets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And this is fully rates funded. It shouldn't it have a full stop after rates funded?
Funded, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. So councillor Hadfield, you're happy to move that?
Yep, I'll rip along with that one.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Balsky. No further discussion. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Councillor Quarry, apologies.
I object to the fully rates funded. I believe that figure should be found within the organisation. And
Well,
if
the
that would-
motion is that it is fully rates
Well,
funded, so
I'd vote against it.
thank you.
Are you willing to make a salary reduction to?
Absolutely.
Yeah, good
Yeah,
on
I've
you,
been
mate.
doing that for some time.
Good on you, mate.
I concur. I support Michael's suggestion. Are we doing the salary quarry? Your salary quarry.
Councillor Underwood.
I was just wondering for the information of the public, whether we could put a total amount so they can see that it's not excessive. Like after $1,000 per trustee per annum, in brackets, maybe a total of
15,000. Yeah.
or a total, a maximum of 15,000, because aren't we too short at the
Lynn.
We'd prefer not to put a total. We were just whispering and suggesting that we would put $20,000 in the budget so that we could account for if the trust had new trustees during the year. So, for instance, if somebody resigned in, well, we pay them at the beginning of each financial year.
Councillor McFadden.
My concern, if you put the amount in it, and I'm be guided by the CE, is the fact that this means every year we're going to have to vote on it, isn't it? Because we're going to change the amount. So aren't we better not to put the amount in there and just put it as per council's policy or something similar?
Yeah.
Otherwise, so we can carry forward.
We would just budget for the maximum amount of trustees anyway. And then if there were less, then that's a bonus. But I don't think we need to put an amount in that sort of restricts us a little bit. And we, we're really talking rats and mice, aren't we?
Yeah, but I take councillor Underwood's point that the community will read that and go, well, jeepers, how much is that going to cost? So, but having it up to a maximum of, is that helpful?
I'm comfortable with the recommendation the way it is.
Okay. Councillor McFadden.
Worship, perhaps we could just put in brackets there X amount of dollars for this year or something like that. So we answer Councillor Underwood's point, but then we don't leave it open for going forward.
Thank you. You've got a substantive motion being moved and seconded on the table.
Yeah.
If people want amendments, they're going to have to move amendments and get seconders for that to change.
Yep. So we have a mover and a seconder. Let's put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Thank you. The motion is carried. Do you want your vote recorded? Councillor Quarry, thank you.
Coming out of the Rangiwahi Reserve budget.
Yeah, right. Carrying on with our agenda, there are no late items, so we can go to item 12, which is seeking to move into public excluded, and I will move that the public be excluded from the following parts of the proceedings of this meeting, namely confirmation of minutes, Awahuri Forest Kitchener Park trustee recruitment, contract variation for the Stanway Halcombe Rural Water Scheme, the tender award recommendation and the 2024 Community Honours nomination. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Ford. Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Against? Motion is carried. Thank you. That's all right. I will